friends, and welcome to the next conversation that we're having as part of the inaugural Empower-thon, which is not only the inaugural Empower-thon, but it's also the inaugural fundraiser for the Parent Tween Foundation. So before I go any further, I want to say a huge heartfelt thank you to Daelyn Larche-Sigman. I said that right, yes?
Got it.
I got it. Okay, good. We're going to be talking about joy. And so, Daelyn, number one, thank you for being you and the joy that you bring into the world. And number two, thank you for being here and sharing of your time and your knowledge and your support for Parent Tween Foundation.
My pleasure.
I love it. So for those of you tuning in, number one, we are streaming to apparently, I just got a note that we're actually not live in our Facebook group for some reason. StreamYard isn't going there. So we will make sure that this link from YouTube goes there ultimately. But we are on our LinkedIn page and our YouTube channel. And I mentioned that this is a fundraiser. That's because at the end of the conversation, I know you're going to get some really good information about this topic from Daelyn. And there is going to be a shameless request to follow the link in the description to make a donation as a way of saying thank you. But what are you donating to? Well, Parent Tween Foundation is the nonprofit charitable division of Parent Tween Connection. Parent Tween Connection, as we say, is where parents go when they don't know where to go to get help for themselves or their kids. Most of the families that we support have kids between the ages of 10 and 20. And we connect families with professionals like Daelyn, who help the parents, the kids, the entire family dynamic. And the Parent Tween Foundation's mission is to help bridge the financial gap that so frequently exists between families and the help that they need. So I'm super excited about our conversation with Daelyn. I have actually known her for 7 years now, 8 years in some fashion, kind of like in tangent to each other. Our circles keep overlapping. And there's one word that I know she likes a lot and that I think just is like, if I had to pick one word for her, it would be joy.
Yeah, thank you.
So, Daelyn, you propose that every family can develop a joyful dynamic.
Absolutely. Sorry, I have somebody saying, how do I find you? Where's the live thing right now? I'm like, I don't know. I can't help you right now.
I will get you the link to YouTube and they can tune in. So why don't you tell us your proposal about joy, joyful dynamics. And then I'll get you the link while we do that. Talk to me, friend. Buy time for me.
Sounds perfect. Yeah, she said she registered, so she should have a link. But anyway, so I was a teacher for 24 years and kindergarten through third grade and have been through hopefully it's okay to say freaking lot in my life.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
Not so joyful. I've experienced a lot of death, a lot of grief. The one that's really egging me on today is the death of my 17-year-old son 10 years ago from cancer. And so I like to tell people that it absolutely is possible to live in joy after having such trauma. And sometimes having is trauma, right?
Actually, can you say that one more time? It blipped out on my end, so I want to make sure that we hear that.
Yeah, I said, so I tell people that, is that the part you want? Sorry.
Yeah.
I tell people that it is possible to live in joy after immense trauma and when you're going through grief. And in my opinion, having an eye-rolling teenager, having been one, maybe still am, and lived through that, I can tell you that absolutely, if I can live through my son to cancer, families absolutely can create a joy-filled dynamic and live with each other in a beautiful way. And, in a way that when you come through the door after work at night, it's not, did you do the dishes? Why didn't you clean your room? Get off the phone. Why are you texting still? Didn't you do your homework? It doesn't have to be that way. So, yeah.
Well, and I know, like, when I first met you, if I can share, you had also just navigated some personal health challenges with a broken back.
I broke my back.
Right? And even at that point, I was just like, my goodness, she's got such an energy about her. And so I love that we're kind of starting with like, you're not just sitting here saying, like, oh, things are just airy fairy and happy. And like, because you've been through some shit. Like, I
I've
don't
been
have a
through
problem
it.
saying that. Like, you
Yeah.
have been through hell and back. Like, I know several friends who've lost children as much younger, but like, you had the 17 years and then navigated health issues with him. And yet you come back and you're saying, yes, every family can experience this. So I think that grounds folks in the fact that like you're not BSing them.
No, I've actually lived and survived the worst of the worst
Mm-hmm.
and have created a joy-filled attitude where I am promoting joy, and I call myself a joy coach,
Mm-hmm.
and my business is Joyful Spirit Coaching.
Love it.
And, I do practice what I preach and had to do that today, as a matter of fact.
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right. Well, and I like that because that gives us real life action. So I know that you say that there are 4 life changing habits that you have taught to your students. And I imagine those are some of the things that you did today.
absolutely. Sorry, I just lost you because I'm trying to get your link to
Over
the
to them.
person
And,
who's asking for it, and now I
yep,
can't
and I'm
find you.
doing the same thing. This is the joy of live, right, folks? Is that you get to
Oh my
see us all in
gosh.
our like tech glitch glory sometimes, because that's just
Yes.
what happens.
Okay, I'm taking a very blurry picture, to show her. I'm sorry, everybody. Thank you for, being patient
No
while I
worries.
try and let somebody in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. And I'm working to get these to folks as well. So again, thanks everybody for tuning in.
Okay, there we go. So, there, hopefully she figures it out. Yeah, it's a long, long time ago, and this makes me sound really old, but maybe I am, even though I identify as like 16.
Right.
Um, in some of the fabulous staff development that I had as a teacher, we learned the fish philosophy. And that has become my personal philosophy that I have taught all of my students throughout the years. When I was a staff developer and in facilitation, I taught my staffs. And now I share it with all of my teen clients, as well as many of my adult clients who are going through some stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I know this works because my son is 29 and he's a general manager at a motorcycle store in town, dealer. And he told me a couple of weeks ago, I used 3 of those principles at work today, and we totally turned our day around. And I was like,
I love it.
yeah.
I
So do
love
you want
it.
to know what they are?
Of course, I want to know what they are.
The first one that I think I'm going to share with you is be there. So it's be there, play, choose your attitude, and make someone's day. So the first one is be there. So in Gestalt, we call it getting in contact with somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So when your kiddo is going through something, or even on any random day, your teen comes home, or you come home from work, simply be there for them. Because in my experience, what all of these teens and tweens want is to be seen and be heard and not be judged.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so that's how I win them over as their coach, because I tell them, I see you and I hear you and I'm not judging you. As a parent, that's really hard.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can walk through the door, or, when they walk through the door, instead of jumping on them because they haven't unloaded the dishwasher, their room is still a mess, their dishes are on, sitting on the arm of the couch, whatever, greet them. This goes for the husband and the wife, the spouse, your partner, whoever it is. Greet
Mm-hmm.
them, look in their eyes, help them feel seen, and ask a question. Really be there for them and ask how their day was, or, come up with some creative questions. So,
Mm-hmm.
really being there for somebody. And I
Mm-hmm.
know I keep saying that, but it's so important.
Well, and the thought that comes to my mind is, I mean, I know my spouse, my partner, and we, whenever he comes in the door, if I'm not in front of my computer teaching or doing an Empower-thon event or whatnot,
Yeah.
right? My very common welcome home is, "Hi, handsome. I'm glad to see you."
Nice.
Right? Like, "Hey, how are you?" Because that's not even necessarily a question. Like sometimes a "how are you" is just kind of like a turn of phrase, right?
It is, and it's so easy to say, "Fine."
Right? But I feel like I've really worked to be like, "Hi, I see you. I think you're handsome, and I'm
So
really glad
sweet.
that you're here." Because I
Yeah.
am. I am grateful every day that I still have him in my life. For those of you that know our backstory, there have been times that we might have questioned that, that one or the other of us
Right.
wouldn't be here the next day from our own shit that we've gone through, and I'm just so grateful, and I really try every day to just say to him how glad I am that he's in my life. And I think
Exactly,
sometimes
and that's a perfect example of being there for him. And on the flip side, if you are on your computer, on your phone, whatever, my husband's name is Chris. We call him Mr. Fantastic. It drives us crazy when we are at a restaurant, which happens every day because we both hate to cook. And the kids have headphones on, they're all on iPods, not iPods, sorry, iPads, or on their phones,
Mhm,
right? And
mhm,
that is the opposite of being there. So
mhm,
setting those boundaries that we're not going to have technology at the dinner table,
mhm,
or wherever it fits for your family. And
mhm,
we're going to be there for each other and have some
mhm,
good conversation that
mhm.
isn't necessarily, how are you?
Right, right.
What did you do at school today? Nothing. So think of some
Well,
creative questions that you can ask. What was the best part of your day today? What do you
mhm,
think your teacher's best part of their day was today? Or what do you think your teacher really struggled with today?
mhm,
Or your boss, or whoever it is,
mhm.
but really be there.
Well, and I also think too, like he's out bowling tonight. Thursday is his
Oh,
bowling
lucky
night.
him.
And so like I know that, and I know when he comes in the door, I mean, he'll probably call me on his way home tonight, but the first thing I'm going to ask is like, "Hey, how'd you bowl tonight? How are the lanes?" You know, and I know what his average is, and I know what a good night of bowling is, and I know what a not good night of bowling is, So like I've learned enough because I'm not nearly as avid of a bowler as he is,
Mhm.
but because it's important to him, I've made a point of learning, where he is in the hierarchy of bowlers,
Right,
right? To be
right,
able to
exactly.
understand that, and I think like for families, like maybe it's a video game or something that, learning enough to be like, "Hey, how are you progressing in that game?" Because it's important to them is another aspect that I've heard a lot of professionals say in the space of being there. It's not
Yep,
just a physical presence, but like and understanding, to your point of like seeing you and understanding you or hearing you. Like,
right.
I don't care about going and playing Minecraft, but I know you
You
do.
do.
And I care about you enough to care about your game.
Yep. And that leads me into the second piece of the philosophy, which is easy and fun, which is play. So while we have to work, we also need to play. And
Mhm,
that is how the fish philosophy came to be. So if you've ever heard of, I think it's called the Pike Place Fish Market in Seattle.
mhm,
And 30 some years ago, the guys were going to work every day in this really cold, dingy, Seattle's not exactly a great place in the winter, and working in a fish market isn't the
mhm,
best place to work. So it was smelly, it was cold, it was dirty, right?
mhm,
And they needed to sell fish every day, and it was awful. And so they came together and decided that they were going to turn this awful job into play. And so they started singing, they started chanting, they started joking with the customers. They actually started throwing fish across the counter. Sometimes they would have a customer come behind the counter and learn how to wrap the fish and then throw it to somebody who had just ordered that fish. And it became a very well-known travel destination. Like, it's on
mhm,
my bucket list, even though those guys are not there anymore. I mean, they'd be in their 60s, 70s by now,
mhm,
because I learned this so long ago, and like I said,
mhm,
have made it my life mantra. And so think about ways that you can play with your kids. My same son, 29-year-old Chance, is an avid guitar player because when he was a teenager and I was struggling to help him find things to do, I decided I was going to go out and get Guitar Hero. And he was not having any of that until he watched the rest of us play. And
Mhm.
he took it on and got hooked. And he is an amazing guitar player now because he took that play into something bigger and better. So you never know, right? So you've got to have a sense of humor and a really good attitude in the family and make the crappy stuff, you know, play with it. Don't make
Mhm.
the dishwasher the enemy. Do something to turn it into play,
The
even if
fun,
your kid's
right?
16, right?
Well, and I think about a friend of mine who has two kiddos who are one just graduated, one I think is a freshman now. And for a long time, she worked in a job where she had every other Friday off, or maybe every Friday off. And she made a point every summer that every Friday it was like mom and the boys, and they would go do something
Mhm.
fun. And it didn't necessarily have to be things that were costly, but it would be, a day at the park or a lunch picnic in the park or something. Sometimes it
Mhm.
was more costly, but
Exactly.
even I've seen families, they'll let their kids play hooky for a day and go have fun,
And have
and just
fun.
go do something. And
Yeah.
from my perspective, and full disclosure to folks listening, my husband and I have not gone down the path of having children. So there's an aspect where like we can't relate to that intimacy experience that all of you as parents can, but we've observed a lot.
A
And
lot.
one of my observations is that in many families, the kids are so hyper scheduled that there isn't space for fun with their families. Like they go and play soccer and they go play guitar and they go do all the things that kids do, but it's the kids doing the kids things. And there seems to be in many families a case where there isn't that fun time with the family.
That's right, exactly. I used to when my boys were born, I couldn't wait to be that soccer mom and, the baseball mom, and Austin had quite an arm. I always wondered if he'd be like a professional baseball player, and, I am so grateful now that they were too shy at the time to play sports because that left our lives open. We went dirt biking, we went hiking, we were at the park playing with the dog, we all kinds of things. We went boating and we played games.
Hmm.
So our lives did not revolve around their sports, and more power to the families who can navigate that and make that work.
Sure.
Right? As
But it
long
sounds like
as
we're
it's a family thing, not just a
right.
kid thing,
Right.
right?
I was going to
Parents
say,
can play too.
it sounds like you're saying, like, yes, go do those things, but not to the exclusion of the family fun.
Exactly.
Okay. So
Yep,
be there, have
yep,
fun.
play. So the
Mhm.
next one is choose your attitude.
Mm,
And you and I were talking a little bit about this earlier.
mhm.
So it's really easy to get down in the dumps and wake up on the wrong side of the bed. And I'm not going to lie, I don't get bitchy very often, but man, I was in a bad mood today to the point where I like had to go check my pill like thing, that I separate all my pill sorter to make sure that I had taken my antidepressants that I take every day because I was not feeling this week like I have. And man, I was getting grumpy. And I had to call my husband and I'm like, okay, practice what I preach. I have got to choose my attitude. And that's exactly what the guys at the fish market did was, hey, let's
Mhm,
choose our attitude. Let's turn it around. Let's
mhm,
create a situation where we're going to play with our people and customers. They created, like I said, a massive travel destination and a huge, massive selling staff development, corporate development program that
mhm.
I think is still a thing today. I think they actually still have a Facebook page. So no, I am not a fish philosophy trainer.
Uh-huh.
But I've lived it for 29 years now.
Mhm.
So, and this is the piece that my son said that he had to do with his staff a couple weeks ago as the GM, and they were getting pretty down. And he's like, Mom, that worked. I'm like, I know it worked.
Right? Yeah.
So choose your attitude. And with my first graders, they come into class, or teens are big about it. So I work mostly with teens, not little kids anymore. And, they'll complain about something trivial, and I'll go, hey, remember the fish philosophy? One of the things is choose your attitude. So I tell you what, here's how I chose mine today. And I always let them know that I am doing it as well. And
Mhm.
I would not expect them to do something that I am not personally capable of.
Mhm.
And choosing my attitude is one. So,
Well, and something that you're not willing to do either, you know? I know in my experiences as the teenager with a tough relationship with my mom, there were definitely times that I was like, "Oh, you expect me to do this, but you won't do it." And that
right.
pissed me off. Not saying she was in the wrong. I'm just saying it pissed me off when I was the kid being like, "Oh, sure, I gotta go do this," but you're not willing to do
But
it,
you're not willing to do it. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway.
Let's have kids, they said. It'll be fun, they said. So anybody that's listening, I always tell people, I've even stopped moms who are having a really hard time, like in the grocery store parking lot with like screaming children. I'm like, listen, by the time they turn 15, it'll start to turn around. I promise.
And they're
By
like,
the
"Great,
time they're
only another
19,
decade."
yeah, Chance is 29 and he's an amazing kid now, but oh, he was rough when he was little. So, and at 15, he turned things around and became a really neat human being. And
Mhm.
he's somebody I really enjoy, being with now. So,
Well,
but I'll,
and what an amazing goal for families to have children as grown adult children who are amazing humans to be around.
right? Yeah.
How
And he
awesome.
knows I feel that way. So,
That's awesome. All right, what's
but
next?
yeah, the last of the 4 is make someone's day. So
Okay.
honestly, this is how I got through 3 years of cancer treatment with Austin from ages 14 to 17, was I made things. I got crafty. I learned new things. I did this program with Dr. Amit Sood, the stress management and resiliency training program. I did all kinds of learning. And so in the hospital, we would be coloring, stamping and coloring cards. We'd be glittering. My mom and I would be crocheting blankets to give away. We were always looking for a way. I didn't realize it at the time. I knew it was helping me to feel happy. Now looking back on it, I'm like, oh, I was doing a lot to make someone's day because I knew it was something I needed to have happen for me. So
Mhm,
doing for others what I needed to have happen. And so it can just be looking at somebody and smiling at them, and
mhm.
saying hi when it looks like they're having a hard day. Tonight at the restaurant, my husband and I, we sat next to this lady who had a huge owl tattoo, and those blue owl eyes looked at me the whole dinner. And we got up and left, and I really wanted to talk to her. She caught my eye. And so we had a conversation about owls and put up pictures of the little owlets that we got to see at the park a few weeks ago. And she's going to look for them next May, And so I like to think that made her day. So
Sure.
getting kids involved in something that is
Mhm,
beyond themselves, which is sometimes hard to do because, ages 13 through 18, we're in appropriate narcissism. At least we
right.
hope, they're
Hope it's
being
appropriate.
appropriate with that. The world revolves around me. So
Right.
doing things for others that make someone's day and figuring out how to do it as a family. But they can
Mhm.
do it at school. It's easy.
Well, and I'm really glad to hear you mention that because for 2 reasons. Number 1, well, 1 reason actually is that studies have shown when it comes to mental health that people, not just teenagers, especially teenagers, but people who feel tied to something larger than
Mhm.
themselves
Yep.
have a lower likelihood of suicidal ideation. Not to
Right.
say it's like a panacea, but it does when you see that your existence matters,
Right.
it gives you a sense of purpose and a sense of worth and a sense of value that doesn't come from other sources, at least not in the same way. And so, so much of
Mhm.
what we do is focused on supporting parents and supporting families to support the kids to lessen suicidal
Right.
situations right? I love having professionals join us who are like, yes, going and doing things in community and with your community is key to this process.
And get their friends involved. It can be a
Mhm.
multifamily thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That goes with part of Dr. Sood's program is kind attention. And very simply put, what that means is when you're at a stoplight or, okay, so full disclosure, the most times when I am the worst is as a driver because people piss me off all the time. I'm like, why are the rules different for you than the rest of the population? So, what you do is a silent practice of wishing them well because we don't know what's going on in their world,
Mhm.
right? When I had Austin, when I was in labor with Austin, we actually are the family who got pulled over because we were going 80 some miles an hour up the highway because I was in really good labor. And so we had the police escort once he looked in the window and realized I really was in labor. We weren't just speeding and trying to get out of a ticket. And so you don't know
Mhm.
what's going on in people's lives. And
Mhm.
so silently, instead of cussing them out or flipping whatever, you wish them well and you send out true feelings that I hope that you get to your destination on time or whatever that looks like, whatever the scenario is. And the driving is an easy one to go through
Sure.
because I do it every day.
And maybe there's an aspect of like if you can't go from 0 to 180, if you can't make the switch, like maybe get to neutral, maybe like if cussing them out is part of the habit, maybe do that, but then add on the positive intention to for now. If we can't get rid of the cussing,
Yeah.
there's a step in
And
the
I
direction,
will
David.
say they don't know that I'm cussing them out because I'm a nice person, and so but that is my one downfall, but then, I always turn around and say, "I'm sorry, I really do wish you well. I hope you
Mhm.
get to where you're going safely and that nobody else is hurt in your
In the
process
process.
of"
Yep.
right?
Yep.
But that can be changed to anything, and that's a really good thing to model to your kids because
Mhm.
we know our kids learn from, they are watching more than we think they
Oh,
are.
yes, they are.
And
Mhm.
so instead of the silent, I wish you well, verbalize that, when you're in the car or whatever it is, somebody steps in front of you and like, look, jackass, instead of that, hold the tongue and silently, I wish you well. Maybe you need to get across the street faster than I do, or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
So that's the kind attention. You're putting that attention out into the world
Mhm.
and bringing that kindness, which I fully believe when we model that for our children and our teens, our spouses, everybody actually,
Mhm.
the world is going to become a better place.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
I love it. All
Yeah.
right. So we go back. You said be present.
So make be there. It's called be
Be there.
there.
Yep.
Play.
Mhm.
Choose your attitude is a big
Mhm.
one. I even have a sign in my bathroom that said attitude is everything. Make it a
Mhm.
good one.
Mhm.
And then make someone's day.
Love it.
So, yeah, the 4 biggies, and I really truly believe it will change the family dynamic, and it doesn't come easy,
Sure.
You may need to make I had a cute little sign with a fish in the middle and little things coming out of it that my husband made
Mhm.
for me, and we posted it everywhere in the classroom, and, I had it posted in my house for a while, and
Mhm.
so I'm one of those, if I don't see it, I forget.
Mhm.
So I've got Post-it notes above my desk right here, and
Mhm.
choose your attitude is one that I've got, like I said, in my bathroom.
Mhm.
Helps me remember from get-go.
Well,
I have to choose my attitude. I have to model for my kid to choose, how that works.
mhm. Well, and the thought that just came up for me, I remember early on, my one of my early therapists. Full disclosure, yes, I believe in therapy and coaching. There is a place for both of them in most of our lives.
Absolutely.
She had talked to us, me, I don't remember if Joe and I were going together or if it was just me, but she had said that, when two people are in a relationship, whether it's your partner's relationship or your relationship with your child or your boss or whatever, I remember she used her hands like this and she said, we fall into a dance pattern.
Mm-hmm.
right? And we know intuitively how the other person is going to respond when we do X, Y, or Z, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then, because I can hear parents saying to you, like, yeah, Daelyn, how much of a difference is this going to make? Like, you're telling me choose my attitude. Okay, but what's that going to do for my kid? I want my kid to shape up, right? How many
Ooh,
families have I heard you and Joe talk about, here, fix my kid, right? When in
yep,
fact, the parents have a whole lot more influence than they may even realize, right? To your point, that kids are watching more than
absolutely.
we realize. And I know from my own personal experience with my husband when we were navigating some scary waters that we had fallen into this dance pattern,
Mm-hmm.
and I changed it. I didn't ask him to change. I didn't tell him I was going to change. I didn't tell him what was going on. I just started making different choices, like what you're
Right,
saying. And what I observed in that dynamic was that things went a little cattywampus. I think because I didn't engage in the way that he was expecting me to engage. Do you think
right.
that's a fair warning for families?
Yes, absolutely. It could be, you're going to throw your kids for a loop for a while, and they're probably going to do one of those, wait, that's not what you usually do. Who are
Right.
you?
Right. Who
Right?
are you and what have you done with my mother? Like, what alien
Right.
has taken over your body? But what I can say is, as I changed and I didn't engage in the same way as I was making those conscious choices, very challenging that they were, we
Hmm.
started to dance.
Yep. Starting,
And
I love that analogy or the
it
metaphor
stuck
of the
with me,
dance.
clearly. It
Mhm.
was like 20 years ago,
Yeah.
15 years ago, whatever. So I
Yeah.
think it's a fair warning to be like, hey, things may go a little weird. Like they may not quite know what to expect when you choose a different attitude, or like maybe you choose not to fly off the handle when they say something that you don't appreciate or whatever it is. Like there may be
Right.
a little weirdness, but that it will balance out.
Well, and like with the dance analogy, you're not going to figure out the whole dance the very first
Mhm,
time you practice. You're going to take one step, you're going to learn one step and practice and get good at it. And then you're going to add the next step, right?
mhm,
It's not like a recipe where you're putting everything in the bowl right
mhm,
away, mixing it up, and voila, this beautiful cake comes out.
mhm.
So choose one thing.
Right.
Choose your attitude is a great one to start with because
Sure.
you can model that really easily and say, you know what, I'm really frustrated right now. And I need you to know that. And I'm going to choose my attitude, which means right now I'm going to step away for a few minutes. I'm going to take a couple breaths or whatever it is. And I really want to talk to you about this in a little bit. And I
Mhm,
hope you can choose your attitude as well.
mhm,
And notice I said and not but.
mhm,
So that's a really important neurolinguistic programming thing to
mhm.
know is we
Yes.
want to have, I am mad at you and I'm willing to talk about it and I still love you.
Mhm,
So even that little shift, I think you'll see something
mhm.
big. It'll take a while,
Yeah.
like you said.
Yeah.
So
Daylin, we could talk all day. I
I
know. I
know.
mean,
I know. I'm
this
looking at the time.
so much good stuff, and I'm aware that not everybody has all day to listen to us wax
Yeah.
eloquent.
Wait,
So
can I
it is
share
at
this
this
book real
point.
quick?
What's that?
I wanted to show this book
Oh
real quick.
yes.
So I know it looks long but it's really good. Dr. Sood wrote this book. I don't get payment for this. I actually haven't talked to him in years. But he knew what he was talking about, still knows what he's talking about. So it's the Mayo Clinic Guide to Stress-Free Living. And the entire Mayo Clinic staff took this on for several years in order to alleviate stress and model something really good for all of their patients. And eventually, Dr. Sood turned it into a program. And so I was lucky enough to be a handful of people that got the training here in Colorado several years ago.
That's
So,
awesome.
great book if you're looking for more about kind attention, joyful attention, that kind of thing.
Awesome. Thank you. I love having professionals like you in my circles so that we can keep expanding and bringing even more amazing resources to folks. So, those of you who tuned in from the beginning, I told you there was going to be a shameless request for a donation if you got some good stuff. And I don't know how you could have not gotten good stuff. Again, this as part of the fundraiser for Empowerthon to help us bridge the financial gap between families and professionals who can support them. So if you want to say thank you, the best way that you can do that is by using the link in the description, wherever you're finding us, whether it's our Facebook group, YouTube, or LinkedIn. Click on the link that goes directly to Daelyn's fundraising page. And we do have a little friendly contest going amongst our speakers. Whoever is our fundraisingest speaker, if you will, we are going to take 20% of the donations that come in through their link and donate those to a family-focused nonprofit of their choice. Because yes, we're trying to build the Parent Tween Foundation, but there are so many amazing nonprofits that are also doing fantastic work. We want to share the wealth a little bit. And so, Daelyn, you had mentioned Dare
with Care.
Say it again.
Yep.
Dare with Care.
Dare with Care. It's based out of Boulder. Paula Dupree-Pressman is the founder. She actually worked on Harry Potter. She was one of the producers. Wonderful lady. And they really helped us during our journey with childhood cancer. And they provided us with groceries and any, activities. We got to go to games and trying to think what else. They helped us. They had our house cleaned when Austin had his bone marrow transplant and really did what they could for our family to make our lives easier in that really difficult situation. And fabulous, tremendous people, and so grateful to them for working with our family and still remembering everything about us and staying in touch even 10 years after losing Austin.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to know about them. They're going to go on our list of supported nonprofits, that our sphere folks support. So thank you. I'm Daelyn. I'm sure we'll have you back for more conversations with Parent Tween Connection down the road. But thank you so much again for what you do. I know you and my husband work together supporting kids that really need people like you in their lives. And I'm thrilled to have you share some of your insights with families so they can bring some of what you do into their homes.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. It's been fun.
Awesome. All right, everybody. Those links are in the descriptions. We thank you for whatever you can offer. And we're going to sign out. Over and out, everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks.